Hi, welcome back to Virtually Sunday. My name's Tony Pichler. Just last week, Peter was the star of the class. He received an A on the exam from Jesus by answering the difficult and big question, who do you say that I am? The other disciples gave their best shot at it, but it was Peter who said, you are the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And for that, he got an A for the day. And then there's today. Peter pulls Jesus aside and questions Jesus whether he really means what he's talking about, whether he really needs to suffer and die. He really pushes back on this whole concept of suffering. Peter felt that once Jesus' identity as the Messiah, as the Christ, was firmly established, everything else would be peaches and cream. Everything would be glorious and great. But Jesus didn't see it that way. For him, the core of the way of life was to suffer, to identify with suffering, to accept it, to go through it, and to grow through it. And as we found out on Easter Sunday, that's what new life is about, the overcoming of suffering. In the reading from Jeremiah, we see that he's a guy who's having some issues with suffering as well, like Peter. The opening line in the book of Jeremiah says, "You dupe me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped." Here's a guy who's struggling with rejection and harassment by the people for sharing the word of God. He wants to give up. He wants to quit. He wants to get rid of this suffering. And aren't we all a little bit like Jeremiah and Peter? I mean, who amongst us really enjoys suffering? For those of you who know me well, you know that I've been going through a bit of a rough patch lately. A few weeks ago, my wife Janine found out that she's got some real serious health issues. And in fact, this week she's had a lot of tests, and as I prepared this reflection, I was sitting in a hospital room at St. Vincent Hospital, waiting for her to get done with some of her tests. Then, just a few days after we were kind of coming to grips with the magnitude of her illness, I was informed by the Norbertine Abbey leadership that the Norbertine Center for Spirituality would be closed within 10 days. I was stunned. I was shocked. I've never been without a job, never been without a ministerial position for over 35 years since my day of graduation at St. John's University. That was some suffering to get a hold of, to go through and to grow through. How would I pay the bills? How would these medical bills that were going to mount? How would I cover insurance without a job? All of these things raced through my mind. More suffering. Then, the day after I finished my role as the director of the Norbertine Center for Spirituality, I was awakened at 5 a.m. by my brother-in-law, Rod, on a Thursday morning. And he informed me that my mom had passed through the night. My mom had been a resident at Crossroads Nursing Home on the west side of Green Bay, and she herself had gone through so much suffering. She had Parkinson's disease. She had experienced a bout of cancer. She had a false eye because an eye surgery went poorly. She was an amputee because a knee replacement went badly. She endured a lot of suffering. That's a lot of suffering for a short amount of time, but that's the way of Christianity. And as Richard Rohr has said, a life fully lived requires a bit of necessary suffering. There are a lot of people in this world, however, who don't see it quite that way. They want to deny that suffering is necessary, that suffering is a reality. They instead see that it's power and control that rule the day. If I just have enough control, I won't suffer. And if I don't suffer, I'll be happy. And if I'm happy, life is good. But that isn't the way of Christianity, and that's not the way of Jesus. So back to the main character in our story, Peter. He learned the hard way that to be a follower of Jesus would require going down, what some have termed kenosis, a self-emptying, in order to discover the depths of his faith. The apex of that suffering, the the climax of his suffering had to be on Holy Thursday, that evening as he sat around the campfire and he denied Jesus 3 times. I can only imagine the sting in his heart when after the resurrection, Jesus on that shore, after cooking Peter and some of the disciples some fish, asked Peter 3 times, "Peter, do you love me?" And I know Peter must have looked back and said, "I denied him. I made him hurt. I myself hurt. I've suffered for this." Ultimately, Jesus asks us to do this in remembrance of him. All of this, even the suffering part. And when we do this, embrace the entire journey of Christianity, both the deaths and the resurrections, then we will be truly followers of Jesus, his disciples. God bless you.